Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We are talking AI and cybersecurity today with experts from NetGain and Arctic Wolf. Today's webinar will be recorded and available for access on NetGain's website by the beginning of next week. Interactive polls will be shared throughout the webinar. We invite you to ask questions and make comments. So please locate the Q&A chat box on your screen. If you think of a question for the panel at any point, just type it in the chat box and I'll pose the question at that time or hold it for the end of the webinar. So please take a moment after the webinar concludes to provide us with some feedback and guidance for future webinars. There will be a very brief survey after the webinar. So let's get started by meeting the experts.
Thanks, Ashley. My name is Braxton Moulton. I'm the Technical Director of Security here at NetGain Technologies. I've been with the company for about 6 years. My primary role here is working with our companies across many different verticals, operating as a VCSO, a Virtual Chief Security Officer. The penultimate goal being to help them improve their cybersecurity posture.
Yeah, my name is Scott Logan. I am the Director of Security Services for NetGain Technologies. My task is to maintain the security posture for NetGain as a managed service provider and avoid any type of access to our companies or our client data. And also serve as a CSO for organizations across multiple verticals. I have been with NetGain now for 15 years, and I have about 40 years of computer and technology and security service offerings available. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys today.
Hey everyone, I'm John Watson. I'm a system architect here at Arctic Wolf. Ultimately, I have about 10 years or so of protecting clients within the cybersecurity realm. Looking from the operational side, I was an engineer for about 6 of those years, then became a systems architect here at Arctic Wolf.
We have broken down some terms and acronyms for you that are relevant to this webinar. Check out the handout section for a download of this sheet if you need it. We've got some really exciting topics planned for you. The webinar will last about 45 to 50 minutes and we'll have some time for questions afterwards. Let's start by getting some expert opinions on AI and cybersecurity.
Okay, I'll start this off for us, Ashley. So AI is here. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think this is going to be the future for a lot of the technology that we utilize moving forward. Artificial intelligence can be good and it can be bad. Some of the ways, since back in the pandemic, past the pandemic, we started having more and more attacks. Attack surfaces went on the rise. AI is just going to continue to make that more relevant in their attack surfaces. It's going to make it more posturing for them to be able to manipulate systems and get into technology. And it's something that we just have to be aware of. But it also has so many good things about it that it can influence our businesses and our operations. AI can process and forecast data faster and more efficiently than humans ever could. And this doesn't replace the human factor. It allows the humans to focus on other more difficult tasks. So it benefits and adds to it. AI can parse data quickly, and with the machine learning aspect, it can identify changes and trends in human behavior, including recognizing insider threat for a good example. But AI can also be manipulated or tricked, flagging something that that it says is safe that is actually malicious. It can also be hard for AI to avoid bias and therefore possibly skewing results. So it requires a great deal of security and frameworking associated to its setup and its operation and who has access. So a lot of the organizations that are looking into AI as something to improve their operations need to take a step back, make sure that you're organizing the AI posturing, the AI framework, that you're picking an AI product that works effectively for the business, and not just throw it out there and hope that it does its job. Hackers are using this technology more and more to kind of advance and to hide their attacks. A good example is phishing. Um, Back in the day, phishing, and not just too long ago, phishing was kind of easy to recognize. There may be poor grammar, bad language, incorrect spellings. There may be all kinds of red flags associated with the phishing attack that made it easier to recognize for our employees. But nowadays, AI has basically altered that to where it is no longer that easy to recognize. It's very manipulative, it's very organized, and it's much harder for our employees to spot it, thus making a potential attack surface for us. They can utilize it for stronger brute force attacks, and those can be elevated to where they're much faster. They can manipulate across enterprises, they can manipulate across infrastructure much quicker and faster, and try to find holes that are potentially vulnerable to an organization. So AI is here. It does have very good qualities associated to it, but it does have some concerning and potentially bad qualities to it.
Scott, it's just like from where I stand in our experience, it's just like a tool, right? You know, you take a hammer, you can build something with a hammer just as easily as you can break something down with a hammer. It's the intent, it's the purpose behind it. It's very strong, very powerful. It's only going to get better. It's only going to get quicker. It's only going to get smarter. That's kind of the whole nature of it. Um, that's not to say, you know, I don't. It's very easy to put AI into a hold or hold it into a bad light. Um, we just also kind of want to stress when we're talking about this, we're going to be talking about like the risks and concerns to our data and everything involving cybersecurity here. But that's not to say that AI is this, you know, big bad evil thing that we all need to be totally scared of. There are very real concerns that we will address and try to shed some light on. But hopefully we'll shed some light on the benefit of those as well when we delve deeper into this. So, John, I'm kind of curious. You are, you know, working day to day with a SOC, with Arctic Wolf. What are your thoughts or your stance on AI here?
Yeah, talking about AI and where it exists in the either the malicious actor side of things or on the good side. Of course, you know, all these security operation um, centers out there are using AI on the back end to analyze events coming in from different telemetry points or assisting our SOC engineers to make sure that their life, they don't get analysis paralysis looking at all these different events and trying to correlate it. And on the back end, we can really have AI do all those correlations and bring it to our SOC analysts and say, hey, this is what's happening, and then put the human perspective on top of that to make sure that, hey, it's a true event that's occurring, and hey, this is the remediation that we need to go on, looking at forward future. Now, going back to Scott's um, piece around, you know, malicious actors using AI, of course, you know, it's easier for them to create emails to send out to clients for potential phishing, but on the back end, they're also using it for scripting. You know, AI is really fast at producing and creating potential scripting languages. And so malicious actors can actually use that to create PowerShell scripts or to create scripts within a specific scripting language to then bolster their attack. And so it's not just phishing, but it goes broader than that on the malicious side. Although just like every piece of technology, we should really embrace it, make sure we have policies, be on the proactive side so we can prevent those vulnerabilities from occurring.
Thanks, guys. That's the perfect segue into an SMB's approach to AI. There's a lot of business leaders here today. I want to kick this off with a poll question. Does your organization have a company policy in place to control the usage of AI? Yes, no, I don't know. Okay. A few more votes in. Okay. Here's the results. No, but we probably should. Yeah, probably should. Getting ready to hear from Scott about that.
I think Braxton's going to lead this one.
Braxton's going to lead this one.
Yeah. So one of the biggest concerns that we have regarding AI is what's happening with our data. What's the impact of that? How can we control that? AI is brand new and shiny. It's the hot topic right now. Everybody's thinking about it. Everybody's looking it up, researching it, us included. Just because it's new doesn't mean we have to reinvent the wheel. Our original approaches from data privacy and data security, that is not going to change. If the big concern is what is going to happen to our data that is utilized by AI, the best way to control that is to control access to the data at its source. So the same thing that we've been doing with applications, user accounts, pieces of software and what they can do, putting in permissions, looking at it from a least privilege access standpoint, making sure that people only have access to the data that they're allowed to have access to or that they should have access to for business needs and business operations. That is first and foremost how we're going to help protect our data and what has access to these AI programs that we're starting to leverage. We have the benefit, or some businesses have the benefit, I'll say, I'm trying to put a silver lining on it because I know that compliance can be a real hassle for a lot of businesses, but we have the benefit of, say, like a bank, where we have state exams or the FDIC coming in or HIPAA even for healthcare. They are very, very concerned about data privacy, and AI is absolutely under watch by those regulations. So they are starting to impress upon these organizations to make sure that they have some sort of company policy in place that is restricting or enforcing how AI and data can commingle. So, which takes me to my second point: how do we even start to begin, or how do we even look at this from as a business? How can we look to control this data? It's having it from a top-down approach from the leaders first and approving some sort of company policy. You can think of this as adding some language into your acceptable use statement or acceptable use policy, or in some cases having a completely separate AI policy and what the expectation is for the business on what you can do with the data, how you're going to define clearly to your end users or your employees what the expectation is there on how they can leverage AI, when can they at all. All these things, as long as your business and your organization approves of it from a top-down approach, that only works to increase your cybersecurity culture with your business, and is, again, the same way that we handle all facets of cybersecurity and data privacy. AI can slip right into that and just kind of fit the mold and hit the ground running there.
You're exactly right, Braxton. Company policy, probably number one, even before you start to implement any type of AI technology, you have to have a policy that defines the regulation of the use of the application. So many of the businesses that you and I work with have no AI policy defined. There's nothing in their information security policy, nothing in their access policies that determine the utilization of AI, and that's a mistake. We try to help them, direct them associated to the creation of a good policy, because without policy, you have no ability to sanction. You have to be able to control what your employees do with your applications, AI being no different. And so implementing a company policy, absolutely number one. And you made a great point with the restrictions and permissions associated to the control. You got to make sure that the people that are going to use the product are number one, trained on how to use the product and understand how to protect the data associated to the product. Without these things in place, then you're putting yourself at definite risk associated to data loss, data privacy violations, and others. So good points.
Yeah, I
I
would
do
agree.
want to, sorry, go ahead, John.
Sorry, Ashley. I would agree with Scott and Braxton around, the approach to AI, of course, thinking of it as least privilege, and making sure that those policies are put in place. But then also thinking about, hey, if you guys are going to use AI, is a closed model more applicable to your business, or is there an open model that makes sense as well? If you're dealing with PII and HIPAA and all these other compliance factors out there, you want to make sure that's included within that policy and that you're thinking of it as a whole picture.
Are there safe and affordable AI options for small businesses? Like you just mentioned a couple. Are those like safe and affordable?
Microsoft Copilot is probably first and foremost what people are talking about right now, especially for small to medium-sized businesses. That can be leveraged across for like generative AI is what we refer to for something like that, where you can give it a prompt, it can create something for you, it can help you summarize a meeting or meeting notes or a document, and it's going to leverage the data that is private to the business. So that's probably like the number one way right now that I would steer a business towards looking at is Microsoft Copilot to help you be a little more productive and making sure that kind of helps you feel a little bit better too about what data it's going to be using because it's going to be tied to the data that is connected within Microsoft 365 for your business. So.
Okay.
You also want to make sure you choose a platform that's closed. You want to keep your data tight and secure. You don't want it in an open platform to where it can be public facing, especially if you're going to be working with data that could be sensitive to the organization or sensitive to your clients or customers. You certainly want to make sure that you pick a AI application or control that keeps your data local and keeps it safe. AI is probably going to get expensive. I see that coming down the road. Right now, they're teasing us with a lot of the inclusion in our browser selections, and that's great and fun. But we got to once again make sure that we're controlling the use of that. But AI could be expensive on down the road.
Let's talk about data privacy. But first, I want to start with another poll question. What vertical best describes your organization? Listed a few out there, maybe some others too. It's like mainly other. A lot of manufacturing, banking, a lot of representation across the board there. Okay. We know that protecting our data is vital for the well-being of our organization and paramount in maintaining trust with our clients. Scott, can you kind of talk about those potential risks of privacy violations?
Absolutely. Back on October 30th, 2023, President Biden signed an executive order to evaluate and mitigate the risks of AI systems to ensure safety, security, and trust while promoting an innovative and competitive AI ecosystem that supports workers and protects consumers. Um, Talking about your top down, that's pretty much top. Uh, the organizations that create the AI applications are under a requirement to make sure of its security and to potentially drive good and positive results once again for workers and consumers. But John said it in the first series of slides. You have to be proactive. This is not a reactive course. You have to make sure that you're being preventive, that you're setting your security controls up front. This is not something that you want to pack in on the backside. You want to build it from the basement up. You want to lead with privacy as your default settings. Uh, Make sure that you're focused on the security of your data and embed it into the design of the application. Make sure that as you're utilizing these products to improve your organization, to bring that data to departments and to department leads more efficiently and faster, that privacy is your primary focus. You want to make sure that you maintain complete control over the application, including the privacy and security settings of it. If you're not in control of it, then you do not know where your data is being manipulated or where it's possibly being moved. I talked about the potential of data manipulation associated to data that's stored in the AI process and the bias that can be included in it. It can make determinations that are not in line with how the business is thinking or how it needs to organize the information. So you need to make sure that you have good control over the security postures associated to the application. And that includes end-to-end security. It has to be completed not only from the server where the data may be originally stored to where it's being manipulated from, whether that be a local user within the infrastructure or from a remote access point, that it has to have that full functionality of good security, good protection associated to data access and the data privacy. You want to make sure that you maintain good visibility and transparency of the information that's accumulated and shared within the application and respect all users' privacies. Make sure that as you do this, if you're going to be manipulating information that is associated to a client, and you're just trying to organize the information so that you can be more effective and more efficient for that client, that's great, but it does carry a great deal of security requirements and privacy requirements, and some of it even the inclusion of a client or a user signing off on the allowance of their information to be inclusive. So a lot of different ways to execute and control that privacy, but it's something that has to be top of mind and upfront in our processes, and once again in our policies.
Yeah, Scott, I'm just going to point out the obvious here. We've got a really awesome list of, potential risks for data privacy. It goes without saying that I think there are probably a few that we've neglected to mention, not on purpose, but it's just that there are so many and that we probably haven't decided to really, focus on here today. These are probably the key points, maybe probably the most important. But also, AI is going to, explode. It already is. It's going to improve, I think, at a pace quicker than we've ever seen, or at least on par with some of the fastest we've ever seen in terms of softwares and technology. Again, that's kind of the nature of it. It learns on its own, just like we do. So I think this list of risks is only going to expand and grow. And once again, however big the list is, I think our approach is never going to change. So embedding privacy into the design of how we're protecting our data and how it's secured, again, from a top-down approach, protecting it at its source, I think that's always going to be paramount here. And I was just kind of curious, John, if you don't mind to weigh in on this a little bit. Again, where you're working on the SOC, you're there first and foremost when there are incidents that are found. There are tickets that are created from the security engineering side. Is there anything else at play here that we might be not thinking of here or mentioning?
Yeah, talking about AI, just remember like bad data in can cause bad data coming out of AI. So the human aspect, the human component of AI is really important in understanding, hey, we're talking about being proactive, we're talking about privacy here, but there's also someone on the back end that's going to have to manage that. Now at Arctic Wolf, of course, we have R&D folks and we have the Arctic Wolf Labs team that actually manages those rules and detections around our AI because we're ingesting over 7 trillion events per week on a consistent basis. So making sure that what's coming in is good data, so you get good data coming back out, and then most importantly, reviewing those policies on a continuous basis, being proactive, and making sure privacy is number one.
7 trillion bits of information cannot be processed by humans. I'm sorry. It requires some level of advanced technology to produce and go through that data effectively and efficiently for what your engineers end up having to actually resolve or review as threats. And so thank goodness for strategies like that.
Exactly, Scott.
What industries have policy regulations mandated in relation to AI?
I'll hit on that. Just I mentioned it briefly, kind of in the last section, but the two biggest ones that stick out to me would be banking, finance, and healthcare. Data privacy has always been, pretty crucial to how those frameworks and regulations were stood up in regards to cybersecurity in the first place. I'd say a really close third place, potentially even going to be second or first, is manufacturing, with potential to like DoD, Department of Defense, or government mandates. Something that might come down from, again, the highest of levels. So those are probably at least in terms of what Scott and myself and John come across, that's probably the three biggest that we see.
Do you think that organizations like healthcare should avoid AI like completely because of the risk, or could the benefits outweigh the risk?
Oh, I think the benefits of AI in healthcare are element. It could be so effective up to the point of even saving lives. I think there's great advantages to its ability to manipulate information. It could actually almost simulate a doctor's opinion associated to what it's been told about what's happening with a particular client or a particular patient, and making a determination of what's wrong with that associated to how it's learned and what it knows. It's going to be extremely advantageous in the healthcare. The other problem with it, though, of course, is that hackers can utilize it to potentially bring down healthcare infrastructure and put patients' lives at risk associated to advanced attacks and advanced threats like that. So once again, as I started out with this, the good and bad, there's extreme advantages for the solution. There are definitely threats.
Let's see. Let's turn it over to John now to talk about how security operations centers like Arctic Wolf use AI for advanced threat detection and response. But first, one more poll question for you all. Does your organization's cybersecurity strategy involve advanced threat detection and response? Oops.
Man, we started out strong. I think the first 5 were yes.
And now it's pretty across the board. There we go. Pretty across the board. All right. You're muted, John.
There we go. Now you should be able to hear me. So talking about how security operations centers use AI today to enhance their threat detection, but most importantly, analyze all those different events. Earlier, I had mentioned that we pull in about 7 trillion events per week, and if we just let human analysts go through that, they would get analysis paralysis really quick by just looking through a small portion of that, right? So how we use AI, of course, we're pulling all that data in, but AI is actually analyzing all those events and understanding, hey, based upon our rules and detections, these are what should actually flow through. So streamlining workflows, which allow the human analyst to understand what's happening on a quick basis, is most important there. But also suppression to false positives. There's lots of events that are coming in. I would say a good portion of them could be false positives. So AI then again allows us to wean out those false positives in a quick manner to get to the true positives, to get to the actual threats that are happening within your environment. Going back to large volumes of data, it's a big use case there to go through all of those events. Now, talking about automated response, this is a big piece today that is kind of newer to the equation because we have always used AI to analyze all these events, but how can we use AI to then automate response? So today, what we're doing is there's lots of threats that are happening within email and phishing components and all these things that are happening, and we're actually able to understand, hey, when a rule or detect or when a mail rule gets created, it's not always done by a good actor or an actual user within the environment, but typically malicious actors create those rules and then they create specific subject lines and they're looking for specific things. Well, AI is able to detect that and then also respond directly to that, maybe locking out a user, resetting credentials, or potentially closing all those sessions that are currently open. So talking about the actual automated response, it's something that we're currently doing today, but it's going to be enhancing in the future. So talking about how things are moving forward and moving towards the future, of course, we're going to do everything we do today, but the automated response is the next function, along with threat hunting and threat intelligence and bolstering what we know today in a much faster pace.
John, I have a question for you. Understanding the value of the Arctic Wolf solution, how can small businesses and or nonprofit organizations enter this caliber of solution? The cost appears to be prohibitive for the little guys, despite the need for organizations of all sizes to maintain industry standards. Can anyone
Yeah,
speak to these concerns?
yeah, yeah, that's a really good question. So talking about like how Arctic Wolf can be brought in to help out nonprofits and other organizations out there that maybe don't have a bigger budget. A lot of security operations centers today price based upon ingestion, and when we're talking about 7 trillion events, that could bring a big price tag behind it. So our pricing model here at Arctic Wolf is a little different, and we price upon how big your organization is. So instead of how many events we're pulling in from your environment, we took the opposite approach of looking at the number of users you have in your environment.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Hey, Ashley, I just want to add, Arctic Wolf's managed detection and response platform uh, is so element in its ability to be protective for the organization, including its SIM, SOC as a service approach to log detection, log review. Um, we believe in it so much at NetGain that we eat our own dog food. We use that utility to maintain our security posture. When you look at a solution that can pull logs from the servers that are basically security informations about what is happening going on at that server. It's also pulling logs from firewalls or switches or other infrastructure within the organization that has logging capacities, because it will take almost anything into its ingestion and do its processing and do its association to determination of the false positives, as John said, but also recognition of possible behavioral changes in data manipulation. it brings all this information through almost like a cone into where it's so thin now that now the security professionals associated to Arctic Wolf can make great determination of if it's actual threat, and then bring that threat directly to the remediation points of where it can be actually taken care of and removed from the organization, whether that be actually manipulation of the device itself, or whether it's a automation control like containment, where it takes that device offline to where it no longer can be impacting to the organization. Great advantages in this example of how MDR uses AI to protect an organization.
Yeah, I just want to zoom in on that point that Scott's talking about, that John has mentioned. If the entirety of the SOC, if all it was just humans, human analysts, we could only get so far. Absolutely. We're not smarter than computers. We're not faster than computers. We haven't been since like the first abacus was created, I think, doing the calculations there. So millions, potentially billions of data points are ingested depending on the size of the business, like per month even. We need AI to filter down what could potentially be the real deal. But AI isn't perfect. That human element is still going to be there. It still has to be scrutinized. So we send it to SOC analysts that have the expertise that can help really suss out whether or not this is an incident that we need to be concerned about. So it's not an all or nothing approach. We have to work hand in hand with it.
I think in general, in AI, people are concerned about AI taking over like a human role and taking human jobs. Do you predict that, like, will the human element could ever come out of cybersecurity?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if it could. I don't think it's designed that way. I think the idea is to improve performance and not replace the human factor of their jobs or their roles within the organization. It's there to benefit, even if it's just to the point of allowing the human to do something else while it does its work. But it's going to do it so much faster. It's going to do it probably more accurately. It's going to provide great projections associated to the data. Once again, I don't believe that AI is there to replace. I think it just allows the human factor to be focused in other areas.
I would agree, Scott. And I think that, AI will actually open up more opportunities for the human to contribute because, of course, all this data that we're pulling in, someone has to analyze it and someone has to see those rules and detections. Otherwise, what we're gonna see 5 years, 10 years down from today is, garbage in, garbage out. So those responses that we might see if no one is controlling that might be responses that are incorrect or potentially biased.
Actually, it may even open up jobs. It may create new jobs for humans that didn't exist prior. I mean, you go all the way back to the horse and buggy. Did it replace the horse and buggy driver when we put out cars? Sure, but it created jobs for gas stations and auto mechanics, and it works the same way. The technology, as it improves and as it grows, it just gives us more opportunity.
As this topic progresses, I think it's important to mention best practices for integrating the usage of AI into your business.
Okay, I'll get us started, Ashley. There's a few things that I definitely want to reiterate or expand upon here. You'll see in the very center it's defining clear objectives. We talked about company policy, setting expectations on what to do with the data and how it's utilized in an AI model. Again, if you are as a business, coming together and approving, what should be expected, what's not allowed, what particular AI models can we use, and for what purpose, that is the best start that we can have in terms of continuing to protect our data privacy, especially as it pertains to AI, but that's good all around the board for just cybersecurity and data in general. I know Scott and John has mentioned having someone invested in or having the skills regarding AI, whether it's the use of it or development of such AI, making sure that number one, we are building it with or developing it with privacy in mind, with security in mind, and that it doesn't lack in terms of security control, because it's very hard to put security in something when it wasn't there from the very beginning. It can be a very lengthy process and may not work out in the end at all. And then as a business, if you're thinking about integrating this or using this in some way, we can say, we'll just use Microsoft Copilot as the example here, because I would like to think most everybody here has at least heard about that in some way. You can start small, use it. If you're the IT admin, check it out. See what you can use it for, see what the implications might be. If it's just a matter of, I like to have it because it can summarize my meetings and I don't have to take notes, that's great. But you have to be cautious about what it's writing down. Were you talking about proprietary information that doesn't necessarily need to be written down? Just be concerned about that. So start out small. Think about how this could impact other employees or end users at your business, and then expand it if you really want to. Scott, I'll let you talk to a couple of these other items if you'd like to.
And you're spot on. I would have put a direct focus on that, investing in skill and training, and not just assume that your employees know exactly how to use the product and how they're going to maintain privacy associated with the data that they ingest into the solution. There has to be a good amount of skill and training, and that comes from the top down. You should have a security expert on staff to be able to guide your security posturing, to guide the direction of how you're going to manipulate and utilize the system, and starting small and gradually increasing how you're going to utilize the tool is a perfect way of standing that up, and not just go to the point where it's overwhelming so fast to where you're not able to control your data, that the data that's coming out is not the data that you were intending, or at least there is some level of bias associated to it that can be damaging to the information that's being produced by this control. You've got to make sure that you've invested in your skills and training, and definitely start small. And that monitoring and maintaining is the final step associated to it. If you're going to put it in action, you have to make sure that you're monitoring and maintaining the amount of information that's invested in this solution, and that it's secure, and that it's delivered to where it needs to go to, and that you're in control of it completely. Make sure that you're exercising good monitoring and maintaining controls.
I do have a question here. Where does someone find resources on AI safety best practices for employees?
I'll take that. So we like to leverage NIST. That's the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They are world-renowned. They're obviously very well known here in the United States. They're a government entity, but they have a great risk management framework regarding AI. It can break down the associated risks to that, what specifically you need to check out for or look out for regarding AI and your data and how it's leveraged. If you kind of go through that, it's a pretty lengthy read, so it is very beneficial to have a cybersecurity expert on staff, or at least someone that you can rely on or call on regarding that has that expertise. But it's a pretty lengthy read, but if you do go down that, you can almost pick out each section and put something in there for like an AI policy on here's what we need to define, here's what we need to be careful of, here's what our expectation is. So there are other frameworks that are in use. If you look at ISO 271, maybe COVID 5, they'll have some language regarding AI or even just data privacy in general. Once again, calling back to the idea of how do we protect our data in the first place. We're not necessarily reinventing the wheel here, but we are trying to be cautious about what specifically to AI do we need to be careful of? So again, NIST has a great framework on this for AI, and that's where I would recommend someone looks to find some more information on that.
Would you find information from NIST about helping business leaders write data policy for their organizations?
Yeah, if you're really interested in the actual execution of writing a policy and you're not sure where to begin, once again, look for a cybersecurity expert. If you have one on staff, it'd be great. Look for one that you can bring in on consultation, would be great. But that risk management framework, if you do go down it step by step, it kind of almost guides you on like what specific section needs to be in your policy and what you need to define.
Yeah, and as chief security officers at Braxton, I deliver to a lot of our clients. We've already provided them with the AI policy templates to organize their or put their organization into a organized state of how the policy needs to be structured, where it needs to be focused, who it needs to include, what data privacy needs to be mentioned. And so we help organizations do that as well. But if you have another CSO or another security professional available to you, ask them, see if they can help you drive how your policy needs to be structured.
Thanks. Any other comments about AI integration and compliance? We will wrap. We do have some questions here in the chat, so give me just a second. Do you have any examples on how AI tools have helped negate cyber threats? Examples of positive outcomes?
John, you want that one?
Yeah, would be happy to. So talking about, mitigating threats on an active basis or an ongoing basis, the threats are happening all across the world at all times. And what happens is that, AI allows us to move faster than in the past where, human analysts may be the only thing you have. And it may take, hours to understand when a threat actually happens or comes in. So, from the Arctic Wolf perspective, we have lots of good ways of how we've mitigated threats in a timely manner to prevent that malicious actor from causing a lot of damage. One recent event from a specific client we had is that they had a malicious actor try to take advantage of one of their users. Now, that malicious actor was, of course, logging in from outside the norm, so from a different country, not the same specific time frame that the user would typically log in from the US. And AI was able to correlate those two events, bring that to the analyst's screen and say, hey, this is what we see happening. And the analyst was able then to understand what was happening next. So that malicious actor then pivoted and was starting to create forward and deletion rules. And that's where our human element, that specific engineer, was able to actually force that user out. So lock their user within Office 365, reset the credentials, close all those sessions, and then we were actually able to work with the end user, making sure that those mailbox rules were actually removed, making sure that no RSS feeds were added, and doing the cleanup on the back end. Now, if we didn't see that, or if we would have let the malicious actor in there for a longer time frame, they could have then pivoted to sending, phishing emails to all of their contacts within their email, or potentially inviting themselves onto calendar invites that they may have for future conferences or meetings. So it could have turned more ugly than where we had prevented it from the forefront.
Business email compromise prevention is so huge for organizations. Whether you're using Arctic Wolf or whether you're using other EDR aspects of protection that have AI or advanced threat recognition controls within it, a BEC can be devastating to an organization. It not only, as John was mentioning, can have access to their contacts and can send out malicious email for the company, but it ruins the reputation of the business. Now you have you have a trust with a outside entity or an outside organization that you have now sent maliciousness to, and they're calling you saying, what are you doing? You just manipulated my organization. You just installed something malicious into our network, and it came from you. We trusted you. And you could break that trust and ruin that reputation. So BEC compromises are so important to be protective against. AI platforms like Arctic Wolf, Huntress, others that are out there are so important for organizations to take advantage of.
I'd just like to also note that, in cybersecurity, there has been a small form of AI that's been leveraged in tools that you're probably very familiar with. You might have heard the phrase like a next-gen antivirus solution, because it can provide not just a signature-based detection, which we get a signature from a virus because it's been seen before. We know what it looks like. What do we do when we get a new virus or something that's polymorphic that can change itself? We have to rely on some form of machine learning. So it can almost, most of the time, I'll say, accurately pick out if there is a new form of virus or a piece of malware. What is that? That's never been seen before, mind you. What is that piece of malware doing? Does it align with what we typically know viruses to do? Is it executing a process within a process? Is it injecting something? What is it doing exactly? And if there are enough indicators of this being a new form of malware or a virus, it will throw up a flag and stop it for something that has, again, this is for something that has not necessarily been seen before. So that type of antivirus solution has been around for a handful of years now, something that can leverage that small form of machine learning. And it has been a net positive across the board for us because with how big technology has become, how the access to internet that everybody has globally now, bad actors, malicious threats, all that has just expanded and grown exponentially. I think probably far beyond what several people might have thought. And it's hard to keep up. So we have to kind of fight fire with fire in that front. So that's, again, kind of like the give and take when it comes to AI. And is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? We have been leveraging it for good things for a little while now.
We're ready for another question. Someone just asked, how can we encourage employees to use AI for productivity and not simply to take shortcuts?
Okay, so let's AI is not perfect. If we talk about if we use generative AI to create something for us like a marketing blurb or an image that we want to use or something else, we want it to create something for a business use or a need, that human element is still there. It needs to be reviewed. AI image generation is not perfect. Not anywhere near. It's getting very, very good, but it's not perfect. If you look at AI generated images, something looks strange about it, usually in some way, like someone's suit jacket will blend into the background because it doesn't recognize that that's meant to be two different things. For example, it knows the general like shape and ideas that these things that we give it in a prompt take, and it just generates it on its own for what it currently understands it to be. So it's not perfect. So I want to express that if you're going to rely solely on AI to do your work for you, you're going to run into a lot of issues because it's not going to be great. It's perfect for, I don't want to necessarily say that, it taking a shortcut is a bad thing. That's innovation. That's why we create things. There's nothing wrong with, using the wheel. We did that. If AI is leveraged to make us quicker or more efficient at something, that's great. But we can't sacrifice the accuracy. We can't sacrifice the quality in our work and the quality in what we're providing to customers or clients or whoever. So I don't want to say, let's not use AI because it's a shortcut. No, that's why it's there. It's to make us better. But that does not mean that it is perfect.
We just have one more question here. Are there specific trainings? Oh, here's another question. AI takes screenshots, but what if I am viewing CUI? I don't know what CUI is. Might need him to elaborate a little bit more on this one. In the meantime, are there specific trainings or certifications needed for professionals managing AI and cybersecurity? Or does that just line up with the NIST framework?
Yeah,
Well, there's trainings out there associated to AI. Microsoft has several training certifications associated to AI that are available. Some of those trainings are free. Some of those trainings have cost towards certification achievement. But there are trainings out there that can allow you to have a very good skilled approach to the utilization of AI. I would take definite advantage of the Microsoft ones. I know there's some other ones out there that are able to provide some directive of security, but the Microsoft certifications are probably the largest ones that are out there right now.
Okay, got a little bit I'm clearer on this question. So AI takes screenshots, but what if you're viewing controlled, unclassified information?
Now you're getting into the elements of CMMC that you were talking about, John.
Yeah, indeed. So talking about like controlled, unclassified information, like if you're unsure of where it's going to go, or talking about the data privacy, if you're unsure of what's going to happen with it, of course you want to be more on the component of being proactive. So if you're unsure of where that data is going to go, and you shouldn't take the screenshot, I guess is a better way that I'm trying to say, is like if you're unsure of where it's going to go, then don't do it. Of course, we're talking about more of a closed atmosphere of AI today, but of course, there's ChatGPT, which is an open source, where the whole world could potentially see it.
Well, that's all of our questions. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Like I mentioned earlier, we will get a recording of this online, and it should be on by the end of the day today, if not tomorrow morning. So thank you all very much for your time. Scott, Braxton, John, I think this was a great webinar talking about AI and cybersecurity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.